Yeah, that's right. I'm wearing my Rays jersey. Couldn't find it in me to get the Bucs colors on, and I got them hanging up for the week. Once again, another Sunday, another disappointment. Bucking Hangover, week 5. Hit that intro.
Touchdown, Tampa Bay, fire those cannons.
Oh my.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Early edition of the podcast today. Really excited to be here with you guys. It is your host, Moose. Mike, still on vacation. He should be back for next week. Actually, should be back for $10 Sports later this week. So we'll see Mike then, get a recap of his vacation and all that fun stuff. But just me alone today, breaking down the Bucs game, kind of a 10,000-foot view, and how I'm reacting to it, how I'm trying to put a positive spin on it. Bucks dropping a 2-3, 5 weeks into the year. So let's get right at it. Let's open up our discussion. Kind of an overview of the game. Main stats are right above me. Focal point always goes to Jameis, of course, right? Uh, had an okay game, 15 out of 27, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, which with an asterisk. We got to put the asterisk on there because I think he had 2 picks that were overturned because of delay of game or a defensive penalty. So, really, I remember when Red Zone was still showing the Bucks game. Don't even get me started on Red Zone again, not showing Bucks games, but when they were actually showing the Bucs game at the beginning of the week of the session, I've never seen a team cheer so hard for a delay of game penalty. You had uh, the whole Bucs sideline like, delay of game, no, the pick's no good, delay of game. Uh, so how the mighty have fallen. But kind of a pedestrian game from Jameis. Definitely didn't win us the game, but he definitely didn't lose us the game either, which is what we usually ask from him. So again, a little low on the pass attempts. I think part of that is the Bucks didn't have the ball. I mean, the Saints dominated on time of possession. Uh, I don't even know if we ran more than 50 plays, to be quite honest with you. Uh, I think maybe a smudge over 50 plays for the game. Big offensive star, really Chris Godwin. Again, almost half of Winston's completions going to Chris Godwin. Two touchdowns, uh, 2 touchdowns and 125 yards. That's I think 200-yard performances in a row. I'd have to look at the stat line for the Carolina game to see if he had, or the Giants game to see if he had another 100-yard game. I don't think he did against the Giants, but almost 300 yards of offense. It was 300 yards of offense combined the last 2 games. So again, great things coming from our upstart wide receiver. Kind of what we expected, though. He was everyone's fantasy sleeper pick to really pick up some of the slack that unfortunately Mike Evans has been slightly disappointing. I don't know if it's the coverage. I don't know if it's Jameis just not getting him the ball. We talked about it during the Giants Bucking Hangover, how we really struggled with getting the ball to him on the fly. Jameis couldn't hit someone in stride if we paid him to, which we are, for right now at least. You'll see Peyton Barber on the ground again. Not a great rushing attack. 8 attempts, 32 yards, good for 4 per average. Did get the 1 rushing touchdown. And on defense, really our lone shining moment. Murphy Bunting pressed into action with the ejection of one of our defensive backs, whose name is escaping me. Man, it's been a long day at work. But the one interception, 3 tackles. I think Levante David led everyone with 5 tackles. Carlton Davis, the ejection of Carlton Davis. I wish we could show a highlight of the hit. I mean, if you're out there, you probably were watching the game. Definitely 60-40. I don't want to call it a 50-50 hit. 60-40 on the hit. definitely could have done better on our end to avoid contact to the head directly. But football's played at such a high speed. I don't know. It's slowing it down. It looked a lot worse than I truly think it was at full speed. And it's kind of a judgment call when you're flying in there at that velocity. But ultimately violated the rules. Refs had to call it. I'd say it was a difference maker because it exposed an even more an already exposable secondary for the Buccaneers. So, what I saw from the game, just I think one word to sum it all up: immense regression. Almost a night and day difference from the Rams game. Offensive line fell apart, and I think part of that is injuries. Rumor coming out, or at least reports now, is Alex Kappa played with a broken arm for more than half the game. Warrior status, yes, but it's definitely going to be a problem moving forward, especially as Carolina comes to the town. And as we look forward towards the end of the podcast, we'll talk about how big of a problem that's going to be. DeMar Dotson also really struggling, ailment that I think pulled him out towards the end of the game. So Bucs are going to be down two starting tackles, or two starting linemen who, our line already mid-tier at best. Ali Marpet's a shining star on the offensive line. We're basically going to be having a career practice squad player, a career backup, now elevated to starting tackle, and another offensive lineman with not who you want starting, at least, especially against the Carolina Panthers, one of the best defensive front sevens in the league, despite their record. Actually, they were getting over 300. They took big advantage of what was going on with our interdivisional game against the Saints. So you'll see down below, Panthers making a move into second into the division with the Buccaneers' loss. Again, Jameis, average game, didn't really surprise, but didn't really hurt the team. I think the biggest disappointment, I think you can't put the secondary as a disappointment because we knew what we had. And again, loss of Carlton Davis, I think that just really stretched us out even more thin. But pass rush was non-existent. And, going back to the offensive line with giving up 6 sacks to Jameis Winston, playing with a broken arm and whatnot. The Saints' defensive line and, to a degree, their front seven, I'd put them in the elite category, especially after the performance through the highlights I saw yesterday. I'm out of market here in Texas, so I'm trying my best to catch up on Gamecast and kind of watching other colleagues and other Buccaneers streamers and their reactions to the game and piecing everything together with Red Zone as well. So, kind of with the highlights I saw, absolutely elite attack against a ailing and on the weaker side offensive line. I don't think you can put too much blame on there. You could argue if Jameis could have thrown a couple balls away instead of trying to run and escape, thinking he was Marcus Mariota, or thinking that he was, what's his name, over in Kansas City. He had a stellar run, by the way. And I don't know if you watched Sunday Night Football, but what a throw, basically running 50 yards to complete the pass over to Travis Kelce. Oh, there's my cat. She decided to join the broadcast today. Anyway, you just can't put it on the offensive line solely because they faced an elite class defensive attack. I don't know if I would put the Saints secondary up there, but when you're getting pressure on the quarterback, it affects decisions, it affects your time to throw, it affects everything downstream, and we really saw that. I think even so, the Bucs didn't even have the ball that much to make those types of decisions. A few of those completions coming on the back end as we were playing catch-up, trying to close the gap to a one-score game towards the end of the game. So just sputtering offense, inconsistent. But back to the big disappointment was lack of pass rush. And let's get into our topics for the day. Kind of what went well. We have sound effects galore for today because we had almost a starting seven of what went well last week against the Rams. This week, lots of X's. Lots of X's on the board. And the performance overall, no good.
No good.
Big meh from Jameis Winston. Ronald Jones, again, kind of disappeared. Him and Peyton Barber right around the 30-yard mark. Defensive front seven. David, Shaq, Sue, no pressure. And again, as we were talking about, the offensive line really coming apart at the seams. Really started the game. Matt Gay making all his kicks, making all the extra points. So we appreciate that, Matt, with the one field goal and 3 extra points to keep us in it. Again, a big mediocre meh from Jameis Winston. That'll really transition us into what didn't go so well. And again, what needs improvement. Seems like it's a growing segment every week. Last week, it was quick. We just talked about officiating, which we'll get to in a moment. This game didn't go, again, without bad officiating, but my God, the secondary, I'm beside words. I think this is going to be something that's on there all the time, right? Because the secondary is not going to fix itself. The Bucs aren't going to make a blockbuster trade move or find a diamond in the rough signing of free agents out there, especially with a pending, 71 round XFL draft that's coming up. That was just announced today, so I don't know if anyone's dusting off their cleats for that. So we'll have to see what's available even then come the draft for the XFL. But big disappointment, not just the secondary, but it seems like just the regressing play of Vernon Hargreaves the third. It's been love-hate ever since we drafted him. You want to give him the benefit of the doubt. Going through rookie growing pains, of course, a year or two ago, and we've seen progression, and we've seen him make those plays and those interceptions, but really disappointing. You can't blame him on the one play where basically Mike Thomas blatantly pushing off, catching the ball, running it in for a score. But for the most part, he's been playing from behind, not only in this game, but in most games he has been absolutely exposed and torched. And we talked about it a little bit in the Rams game. We all felt good because 155-40, we still gave up about 40 points, or 33 points because of the pick six, or 34 points technically, I guess, right? But we talked about how blitzing really puts our secondary into a bind, and we saw that again. It's a Todd Bowles way in the 3-4. You got to bring the heat from somewhere. You got to rush at least 5 and 6, and that offensive line for New Orleans did their homework and really stuck it to the Buccaneers front seven, and it doesn't help the secondary when the pressure's not getting there. It absolutely disappeared. I don't think we sacked Teddy Bridgewater. I didn't see any tackles for loss even then. We were not in the backfield at all, even stopping the running game. Controlled Alvin Kamara pretty well. To be honest with you, I think he had 104 total yards from scrimmage, so 60 rushing, 42 receiving. So effective there, but it's just, we gotta, I don't know what we're gonna do, whether we sacrifice and throw our names out there throw our hat out there for Jalen Ramsey in the offseason, or maybe give up a 1 for him. I just don't even know what to do at this point. Let's talk about the officiating. Part of the reason I think we couldn't get any pressure is because there was some holding going on. I know we can make the argument that, there's holding every play if you really look for it. I know, but again, I'm not even talking about on the line. These referees were really letting the wide receivers and DBs go at it, and to the point where it was just not advantageous to us. We saw the very obvious play with Mike Thomas pushing off, I think it was VG3, touchdown. That's a difference-making play. I just don't even know where to go with it. And on the second hand, we need to talk about this pass interference review. I just feel like this is another kind of... It's really worked in the way that if you're Mike and I were talking about it back in our first podcast that are I think still available on iTunes. One of our first $10 sports podcasts before we revamped everything. That we really thought this rule was going to have the effect that it has right now, and that is the refs are gonna let them play, and then if a flag is thrown, then they'll go review the play, and more often than not, there's not enough to overturn a call, so the play is gonna stand. So we've really not improved anything. I'm curious to see what the stats are, and I gotta pull those. Make sure you follow me on $10 Sports, because now I'm personally interested in this and what the statistics are on overturned pass interference calls, whether they're overturned to be pass interference or overturned from being pass interference. I'm really interested in that and how the referees are performing. We talked about the offensive line and defensive pressure again. Not sure where that went, but the big stories again, calling out O.J. Howard and Mike Evans. 0 receptions for Mike Evans. I think that ends a streak of like 60 games of at least 1 reception. O.J. Howard has disappeared from the play calls, or isn't getting open, or I don't know what's going on. I know we had I think 1 or 2 completions to Cameron Brate, who maybe the coverage is going O.J. Howard and Mike Evans, opening up Brate and Godwin. If that's what's happening and it's a team effort, then I'm sure Mike will be the first one to tell you it doesn't matter as long as we win. The problem is we're not winning, right? So I'm sure Mike was frustrated. I'm sure O.J. Howard's frustrated. I'm sure we're all frustrated, especially when you don't have the ball for over 30 minutes and you're only passing 27 times, including garbage time, trying to come back to be able to get within 1 score. So. Just really what needs improvement. I'm hoping Mike Evans has a bounce back game against the Panthers. We'll see how that goes, and O.J. Howard's going to have to be important playing against that front 7. So, as you can see, you can follow us over at $10 Sports, part of the Balls, Brews, and Bros Network. We're very proud of that. Just wanted to throw in a shameless plug in there. But what's next? And got the big flight over to London. I think the Bucs are leaving. Should be leaving Wednesday over to London. Get acclimated to the time difference. Get some practice going. Beautiful stadium over in Tottenham. I was watching some of the Raiders game. When they were doing previews, I'm like, oh my gosh, whose stadium is this? And I failed to realize before long that it was the Bears-Raiders game at the new Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. What an amazing stadium. Amazing what $1.8 billion, it was like 1 billion pounds can buy you. You know what? I was looking at flyovers of the new LA stadium, and I think that's going to give it a run for its money. Right now, the bare bones of it looks awesome. Better, like more amazing than any stadium we've ever seen yet. I'm kind of curious what Allegiant Field's going to look like over in Las Vegas, as well as that's starting to come together for the Raiders' move next off season. But so our London game, the Bucs will be the home team against the Panthers, finishing off the Panthers' home and home series. They're a 2-game series against division foe. In week 6 of the season, we won't see the Panthers until next year. But of course, our big threats: Christian McCaffrey. Number 1, number 2, number 3 key to the game is keep him confined like we did a few weeks ago. If we can't do that, it's going to be a long day for the Buccaneers. That front 7's got to find a way to bust through that line and be disruptive. Got to find a way to neutralize them in the passing game as well. I see Kyle Allen really playing well in the absence of Cam Newton. Panthers are winning without him, which I find interesting. I think I'm not surprised. Cam's really declined over the last year or two, unfortunately due to injuries. We hope to see him back on the field. I love Cam's charisma. I think he's good for the game. He's such a humanitarian and philanthropist. So we wish him the best. But it's great to see the Panthers thriving, I think, in a life after Cam that may be coming up sooner rather than later. And then I think the big surprise for the Panthers has been Joey Sly, their their place kicker, really only missing his first kick last week, but he has been drilling 50-yarders like it's been no one's business. So the Panthers got a game from distance as well, even if were able to keep them off the board in terms of touchdowns. Their kicker is able to make long distance kicks fairly consistently, so we got to keep that in mind as well. So kind of, as we close our episode, again, we appreciate you so much listening, subscribing, liking. I think as frustrated as I want to be with our team, and this is it's a Bucs life, right? We've gone through this ever since the Super Bowl year. We get our hopes up, and there's a long 8-year period of crap where we knew we weren't going to be any good, right? But we've got the coaching, arguably, we've got the players, arguably, minus the secondary end, and a plus or minus on the quarterback still, right? But if you ask yourself, did we see ourselves at 2-3 going into week 5? Kind of as I was level setting today, preparing for the show, like, you know what? I think I would have taken 2-3 given the schedule we had. I think we let one get away against the Giants, but honestly, 2-3 against the Rams? Are we getting a win against the Rams and swapping that with the Giants loss? I think we're at where we need to be, and we have a good opportunity to really be 3-3 as we get into Carolina and head to that off, heading into the bye week 500. I think that's a big win. We still got 2 games against the Falcons, which I think we can dominate. I think we can get to 7 wins this year. I'd love to see 8-8. I think 7 is the ceiling for us this year, given the inconsistency in how we're playing, and some of the. I'm a little scared of our injuries on the offensive line, and with Carolina leading the league in sacks, could be a potential recipe for disaster next week. I'm hoping we find a way to step it up, or add extra protections, keep a running back in there, keep Cameron Brate in there to help out on the tackle, with the new tackle coming into play. I think it's Josh Wells coming off I think it was a signing earlier in the year, so he's familiar with our system, but again, a new tackle protecting Jameis Winston. That's it for the Buc'ing Hangover. Thank you so much once again. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, share it with your family and friends. I love doing this. I know Mike does as well. Just kind of our little project to keeps us fresh, especially with busy family and work life. So we love our Tampa sports. Rays coming up big today, beating Houston over in Tampa. Game 4 tomorrow. So we'll keep up with that on Twitter as well. So make sure you're following me at $10 Sports, $10 Sports, for the latest picks, the latest GIFs. I love doing GIFs and what's going on in the sports world. And make sure you're following Mike. Gonna get it right this time, I promise. Balls Brews Bros, at Balls Brews Bros for Mike. Oh no, I didn't get it right. I bet you didn't. It's Balls Bros Brews. Balls Brews Bros. Look for Mike. I'm always retweeting him. I swear I'll get it right one day. Thank you guys so much. We appreciate you guys. It's been Moose with the Buc'ing Hangover. Go Bucs. We'll see you next week.
Touchdown, Tampa Bay, fire those cannons.